Got it. Take two. So your first healthy risk of the afternoon was to hang on and to listen to the Power Hour. So greetings to everybody. This is a Native Wellness Wednesday Power Hour. I'm Lori Newbreast, Nataniko Nikki, and today we're really excited because it's summertime. You try something new. Just don't try that like neon cotton candy at the powwows. I don't know what it does to you inside, but we're going to talk about, along with Melissa Buffalo and CoCo Villaluz from the American Indian Cancer Foundation. We're going to talk about Indigenous health, but also how to be a good ancestor. And what does that mean when things like one of our featured programs will be the Creating Connections, that really is about Indigenous tobacco. Like, what is that? What does that mean for you when you form that relationship? And we'll get into a bunch of things. It's kind of going to be a speed power hour. And to zhuzh you up, we're even going to have a giveaway, which CoCo will do. She'll give instructions on that. So with that, I'd like the other two folks on here to give you a little introduction of, where they're from. Oh, I'm coming from my homelands of the Sitaketapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, and they will share with you their introductions. So Melissa, CoCo, either one.
I can go first. Thank you, Lori. Hi, CoCo. My name is Melissa Buffalo. I am joining you from Minneapolis, Minnesota, homeland of the Dakota and Ojibwe relatives. I am the CEO with the American Indian Cancer Foundation, and just again, excited to be here with Lori and CoCo.
All right. Thank you so much, Lori and Melissa. Thank you, Native Wellness Institute. I am CoCo Villaluz, and I am the Health Equity Manager with the American Indian Cancer Foundation. And so happy to be here and tuning in from Northeast Montana on the Fort Peck Res.
So today we're going to begin a conversation, but also, to the best of our human ability, if there's a question that comes up, we'll be putting websites or mentioning them. They'll be in the chat. But again, one of the spaces that we're occupying today, it's the solstice. And every culture had information about what that means. And so for my people, this is the day that Natusi, the sun, after today begins the journey home. And it's those agreements that were made for my people, or the agreements that were made before the presence of today. So those, like, they're galactic agreements where night and day, the basics of life have their own energy and their power, and they make an agreement that we had nothing to do with it. And look, it's still working. So for our relatives in the Southern Hemisphere, not time to put away your winter jacket, or at the equator, they're always cooking. But, the sun is on its way to you. And so for a number of people, that really emphasizes, but there's so many teachings and they're all beautiful. But I was thinking, okay, how do you wrap it up in a power hour but there's a saying in wellness. There's a lot of sayings in wellness about interconnectedness. And that's how interconnected our teachings are. It's to the universe, to understanding the things so that you anticipate there will be change. There's always change, but you don't meet this day with fear. And so for my people, it signals the continuation of our way of life. We start moving towards our central ceremonies, or one of our ceremonies all over, which we've already been conducting many others that led to this trail. So then we just move forward in that way for our health, our wellness. And I was thinking about, like, today, having the American Indian Cancer Foundation here, and then talking about the Created Connections program. that I think of things that I've heard over my life about wellness. And, I've been in it like decades, which I didn't even know I was in wellness one time, hey, kidding. But I heard this recently, and I think that when we talk about wellness, it means healthy interdependence. And really, you see that example, this living example here with the Native Wellness Institute and the American Indian Cancer Foundation. Those core principles of, being positive, proactive, and productive. Melissa's going to talk about what their interpretation or their sharing, what they're lending to the wisdom of now of all of us. But I thought, what do we have in common when we talk about these things? And I heard this comes from the First Nations up in Canada. They're two spirit relatives that were integrating health policies. And they said, really, this is the time where we reduce the harms of colonialism. So what does that mean? We restore those healthy interdependences, and people working in overall wellness. You're not just, body parts, right? Or you're not a digit. We're not AI yet. I don't know. Anyway, that's another show. So when we look at those, what does that mean? And when we talk about Indigenous health, which I'm going to hand it over to Melissa to introduce you to what it means for American Indian Cancer Foundation, or AICAF. How we like nicknames, we like acronyms, fits on a t-shirt good, So what does that mean for AICAF? So Melissa?
Yeah, thank you for that. I think, again, just seeing that how much connectedness and, alignment that Native Wellness and AICAF does, and the reach that, we both have to be able to bring wellness to our communities is just beautiful. And again, honored to be here. The work we do at the Cancer Foundation, being an organization that was founded in 2009, really came from, looking at those inequities our people face due to the cancer disparities and how our people have continued to be impacted by those. And so I love the work that we get to do at AICAF. And the reason I came is it really is an opportunity to come up with those solutions that are tribally driven, because we know our communities have those, right? So the work that AICAF does is really alongside and in partnership with our communities. And I think that's, nothing could be better that way. And so how do we really work to eliminate those cancer disparities? And, you talked about it through wellness. When we think about cancer prevention, it's our culture, it's who we are, and, that connectedness to our ancestors and everything they've given to us. And so we do that through, culturally appropriate work, those programs that afford our Native people to be their healthiest. And I'm just honored to do this work that we get to do every day.
So, you have those, right? Those things people can remember, like culture is health. Mm-hmm. And I heard this thing about where, we're all becoming healing informed, and that means we're also culturally informed. And everybody has in wellness, like, to be connected to yourself, you have that little meteor inside of you. When something doesn't feel good, or, you have that question in your mind, are they talking about including us? And I think that's the one thing about that you can see at American Indian Cancer Foundation through all their activities. They have a big national activity coming up, and you see that is a place for us to reflect the many cultures that exist. But Melissa, do you want to talk about Powwow for Hope a little bit?
Yes, I do. So this September, we will be bringing back, I'm so excited to bring it back in person, our annual Powwow for Hope, Dancing for Life, Love and Hope. It's our community healing event and fundraiser to support not only our cancer survivors and caregivers, but, honor those loved ones who've really been impacted or affected by a cancer diagnosis. And then also, the other part is also, how can we use this event? How can we use, the opportunity to come together to celebrate and be together for powwow as an opportunity to increase awareness of cancer prevention. And, how do we bring those resources to those that come to this annual event? And, due to the pandemic, of course, we were remote in 2020. We didn't really have an event. And then the last 2 years, we were able to live stream across Facebook and really connect with people on a national scale and be able to still hold this event and, bring conversations. And so to have the opportunity to bring it back in person this September is just exciting, as, we have a lot of new staff that haven't been involved in the planning and, bringing this event and being able to have ownership on it. So it's, again, just an amazing opportunity to join together with our community, with volunteers, with our sponsors to, essentially fight this disease that's impacting our relatives, and how we can all support one another to be healthy. And, some of the work we do at AICAF, we talk about to be a good relative. And I think that's really the work that all of our teams do across our programs, to really be a good relative and to, bring education on cancer prevention, on screening, on treatment options, on clinical trials. What does the prevention side of it look like? What are policies on a tribal level? So just so many ways to bring this annual event as a community healing event to really welcome everyone back to the circle. And it's been exciting to plan that event. Again, it'll be in person this September. Typically it's held in May, but just with, coming out of the pandemic, which I think as Native people, we still know we're in, right? Wanting to protect our relatives, pushing it back to September. And so how do we, one, see it as a community healing event, but also an opportunity to raise funds, right? To support the work that might not be funded by a grant, but, that actively focuses on our prevention and early detection to essentially help decrease the number of new diagnoses and increase survivorship among our Native people, among our relatives.
Thank you for that. I'm reminded of those, like an early wellness saying, but it's still said somewhere on a t-shirt, is, to be a good relative or to have healthy interdependence, sometimes you start with yourself. And, still the largest role models in our communities, and many of you that are on this journey, with the wellness journey with, in your community with the larger wellness movement, that everybody watches, everybody sees, and we're the role models. But also, I just want to be mindful of the time that we live in, that it's really important that there's a safe space to go through the internet or to events that you can find out correct information. And then you can make your fully informed decision, or, building your awareness. But everybody, there's also, this is a unique time, September 23rd, right, 2023 at Fort Snelling in Minneapolis, Minnesota. You get opportunities to smell all them Indians. And they'll be smelling good. They'll be like all sweetgrassed up and, they'll smell like home. I was smelling my shawl this morning. It smells like cottonwood smoke. I was like inhaling it, sniffing my shawl. But you will also get an opportunity to see relatives that the pandemic has really kept us separate, and make new friends. It's always healthy to make new friends. So part of the Creative Connections project, that's a project within AICAF, we mandate in AICAF too, that you must have fun and you must have prizes. So I'm going to give CoCo the box. It's not a box. We're too big for a box, but she's going to lead us on a giveaway. So start paying attention. You're at work, get your pencil out. Okay, you ready to chat?
All right. Thank you so much. So, just as Lori and Melissa were saying, all of these are so important and embedded in our DNA and how we walk this earth, and thinking about, the solstice as we're growing and planting all of our medicines and our foods, really what that looks like. And, as part of this work, that's what we're doing. We're nurturing not only our medicines, but, our spirits, and healing and thriving, because we have so much amazingness, who we come from, where we come from, the lands that we come from, that it's how we do this work. And so it's been so important as part of the Creating Connections team that we're leading with love. We're leading with these teachings. We're leading with like the smell goods of the natives, right? That's all part of, who we are. So, I'm like, oh, let's go smell a native after this. So after this, yeah, smell yourselves, like breathe it in. And as part of this work, and we'll get into some of our projects here, but we love to have fun. We love to dance. If we were in person, we'd probably be doing a soul trade line. But for where we're at now in this virtual medium, we would love for you guys, if you're listening in live on the Facebook, to please tune in, like what your name is and where you're tuning in from. And from that list, we're going to draw for some amazing prizes towards the end of this webinar. It's just a fun way to engage, because who doesn't love prizes? I know it's after lunch for some people, but it's just part of the work. And with the Creating Connections project, we are funded through the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation to focus really on the restoration and reclamation of traditional tobacco. We lead with all of our cultural teachings. Even this morning when I got up thinking about what we were going to do, it's the summer solstice, we're having this webinar, we're talking about our medicines, went and made an offering, because that's how we get started in a good way and speaking with love. So we're just really excited to be here. I'm looking, I have the Zoom link and the Facebook link. So I'm watching the chat here to see as you guys are interacting with us. So I'll turn it back over to you, Lori.
So I also, this will be a conversation, but do you want to hold up the gifts that they could win, CoCo? Because, like the t-shirt is sacred, but there's also some other parts.
So we have this amazing bucket hat because, it's pretty sunny out there. Also, we have this amazing cup, and all of this is branded with our logo that was created in partnership with our Creating Connections team. The sacred warsher, as Lori likes to call it, it's this nice crew neck sweater because, summer nights still get chilly when you're out by the campfire or the powwow. And then the last is this nice travel blanket with the handle and a pocket that you can carry with you and keep, because you just never know. I think next swag, we have to think about like those powwow chairs or those to-go chairs so we stay ready, right? So that's some of the swag that will be given away towards the end.
And so I think that every, in your community or maybe even in your family, there's always in Indigenous cultures, there's always a symbol, or like a circle may mean a circle to some people, but a circle may be a star to other people. And I think that when you start seeing, like native wellnesses, you see that circle and that feather and that pathway to wellness, it's very specific, right? And so we're wearing our medallions. That there was a lot of input from many voices and many cultures about this. And one of the main focuses of Creating Connections is to revive, restore, support, continue, expand our traditional tobacco teachings. And so there is now a website, www.traditionaltobacco.org. And really, this is our invitation to you, everybody listening, tell your cousin, tell your friend, that will really be a space where people can, through their own authentic narratives and voices, share what they know, what they want to know, what they are seeking about traditional tobacco. And we really recognize there's a distinct difference, and we would need a series on when that happened. But it's when our way of being the Indigenous tobacco carriers, which is largely, if it was only in the Americas and 2 other places in the world, but we were all gifted for this, to continue our way of life through teachings, through ceremonies, through practices. And, on this continent, many, many places were the places where tribes, cultures gathered, and we helped one another. And I think that's also part of the wellness new movement, not only for individuals, but for communities, circles of, I was thinking about this morning, like Circles of wellness are everywhere in Indian country. There are people saying, yeah, this is bad, and I'm gonna turn it around, or we're gonna turn it around. And really, that's a way. Tobacco was a main connector between people. And through relationships, nobody had to change. Like Melissa or CoCo didn't have to become my people in order to have a tobacco tradition. They had their own. But we want to recognize too that some of the Indigenous people do not have, as part of their healing practices, the use of tobacco. But they may, in the modern time, be helped by communities that do. So really, it's us recognizing the time we're in, the healing from the harms of colonialism. And how do you do that? You begin to see that Indigenous knowledge base. That's Indigenous health. To be able to recognize the holistic parts. Many of you that have been at Native wellness trainings, you hear that, right? You hear those things, the circle, kind of doing your wellness temperature, taking your own wellness assessment before you start assessing other people. And you can see that interconnectedness. And I think we have events like, Powwow for Hope, where you see many, many cultures come together, and they don't all have to, they don't check their culture at the door. And that's really getting back to that healthy interdependence, because we all lived here prior to colonialism, before first contact, not from the ET, but, from those other folks. And so when we're talking about traditional tobacco, that's really, the emphasis of the program, but not shying away from the harms of commercial tobacco. And I think you'll see at AICAF, when you go to their website, www.AICAF, I was going to Indianize it because I say casino. I don't say casino. I say casino. Anyway, that's another series. But CoCo, is there anything you'd like to add about the Creative Connections project or the website or the events next year, this year?
Absolutely. So I just put some of those links in the chat, and we have some incredible things coming up. We just launched our first ever traditional tobacco website, where it's all things traditional tobacco. And what you're going to see is, just the beginning, but we're really hoping that all of you in your communities, if you're allowed to share with, of course, permission and protocol, what is your traditional word for tobacco? What is the translation? What are some of your teachings and stories? If you would like to grow tobacco, our hope is to be able to create these networks, to be able to seed share. We also have this term that we call wisdom keepers, and we would love to learn from all of you and have this website kind of be our one-stop shop, all things traditional tobacco. So this is going to be everybody's website. It is going to be community ownership of this website. And so as we get new content, we'll be updating that, not only on traditionaltobacco.org, but as well as our social media pages. We have an Instagram and a Facebook page. So if you go to those, it's all traditional tobacco. Another amazing event that is coming up in 2024, we just started the planning, is the National Tribal Tobacco Conference, where again, it's another space to network and share all of the amazing things that are happening around your medicines in your community. We know that our science, our physics, and all of that has been around since time immemorial. Our traditional tobacco teachings have been able to be passed down for generations. And so this is just another incredible opportunity to be able to, meet new people, smell more natives, and, just be in a space where we're just, sharing story and good food and more giveaways. Like, that's always just such a fun part of it. Some other activities, and I can let Lori talk about this, is the Gathering of Native Americans, or GONAs for short. We'll be having some of those opportunities coming up, and Lori can dive into that more. And then one other thing that we have, and we are doing a grant funding for the first time, and the application is called the Circles of Cultures Traditional Tobacco Application. And we are planning to fund 5 tribal nations to be able to do things all traditional tobacco. If you want to build a greenhouse, if you want to grow your medicine, if you want to buy a canoe to be able to harvest your medicines along the riverbank, if you want to support your elders, this is a great opportunity. The applications are due July 1st. And again, this is all things traditional tobacco. You'll hear us say this over and over because our mission is to be able to keep tobacco sacred. We are keeping tobacco sacred. We're reclaiming all of our medicines. Lori often talks about like how we're going to go, reclaim our seeds in all those museums, and hey, you never know. In a good way, of course. But that's all what we're trying to do is we're honoring those medicines, we're honoring those seeds, both literally, figuratively. All of us are medicine. And so we want to continue to grow in such a beautiful way. So we're encouraging all of you to join our circle virtually, in person. Stay tuned to our website and our pages because we would love to be able to meet all of you, give you a big hug in person. So those are just some of the incredible things that are coming up within the next year and a half. And so now, Lori, I'll turn it back over to you to highlight on the GONA.
What comes to mind too, when I think about like all the harm reduction or prevention strategies that AICAF does, right, is that actually the origin of AICAF is grounded in some core tobacco work that I think there's many seasons to growing tobacco. And we also recognize that some people right now, the grant opportunity would include if your people gathered tobacco where it lived. And what does that mean for you? Does it mean access, field trips, or, going out seasonally to, maybe it's governed by Bureau of Land Management. So it's not just, it's recognizing the diversity. And then there are some nations that they had a healing tobacco tradition, but also those nations received their tobacco through relationship. So there's also that. So the diversity. And then if you have a healing tradition where maybe it didn't include tobacco, it is also a part of like the conference. Those are places where you can come and understand we support your healing, and we understand the harm that commercial tobacco has visited on into your communities. But I think when you go on the AICAF site, you're going to see a lot of, there's infographics that, that one team or one set of relatives as they journey through AICAF produce, what does happiness look like? And it included a traditional tobacco gardening. And so you get a lot of resources when you go there, things you may know. And the website is somewhere where we can help our other relatives through the act of generosity. And I think those of you that have attended GONA's Gathering of Native Americans, that was a thoughtful strategy to say, you don't have to check who you are at the door, but we're here to support you, and to not to understand that there's been harm. There's harm being committed right now in our communities, but the circles have the ability to adjust a wellness. And I think you're seeing that expansion now. Like, you see our communities responding to the next boogeyman, or, the next thing that they're trying to scare us with. They're always trying to scare Indians, but some of that has been that fear of challenging what makes us, or addressing what makes us not well, is also something that really, it's a journey. So wherever you all are today, you're in the right place. And it's, there's all these sayings out there, like it's a journey, or it's a process, or depending where you're at in the border process, it's a part of what we're living now, because we're the living generation. So Gathering of Native Americans, beautiful components. You have everyone belongs. That's my favorite. Everyone belongs. The laughter, the joking. You become a good relative. You're learning how do you belong in a healthy way, and you belong. You're included, no matter what you what you look like, what family you come from, your community, don't matter. Come as you are and you belong. And I think that really is a message of wellness. We all belong to this, and we're all in certain camps guiding towards, that beautiful future. And Gona is really about being future, living now, doing what you can, but knowing that it will continue. And if there's any doubt, because there's a lot of scare, people like to scare it. I don't know, that news, we need our own news channel. Just putting a plug in there to somebody out there listening. But really, fear was not our way of life. But how do you get there? When you don't get those aha moments, and really being mindful that we're coming out of the pandemic. And I think, the Gona recognizes it includes many of the elements that are like at Power of Hope, right? You had that beautiful opening where you acknowledge the creator, a blessing. Then you have the grand entry of everybody committed, right? That's how Gona is. Everybody belongs, and we start to learn how to behave in that circle for the time that we're going to plan for the future with Gona. So what do you have at Power of Hope? The drum? I heard this term today and I thought, I love that term, or that saying. We're going to drum that out. Like if you're feeling somehow, you hear the drum, you listen to it, you play it, you make it, you go collect the hide or whatever. If you are around the drum, you're already on your way. And so you'll see those beautiful elements. There'll be people sharing their knowledge there, their prizes. I haven't told somebody, oh, come on tomorrow when we're on the Native Wellness, because we're going to give some prizes. And they're like, I could see they were wavering, and then they heard they're going to give a gift. So in the gathering of Native Americans, yes, we have that opening, we have that belonging, but we also offer a way to talk about the harm so that we can pass through it to the future in a different way. And even the future in our own lives, the next hour of your life, you can change it to a wellness hour. You can do one act for yourself. But I just, before I continue with the Gona, so Melissa, is there anything you'd like to add about, because sometimes the power hour zips through, but I'm mindful I'm not the only box on here.
No, I could listen to you all day, both you and CoCo. So it's just an honor to be here and listen to you. As you think about, what happens at Powwow for Hope, it's not a typical 3-day powwow. It's a 1-day event, right? Where we come together and, have grand entry, do some intertribals. We do a healing dress ceremony to really, again, just honor those that we've lost to cancer. And for healing for those who are still with us on this earth, because it is hard, right, to lose loved ones to a disease. And CoCo and I just, had a staff meeting earlier that was really heavy when we were talking about trauma and, how we heal from that and how those triggers and how we, bring those emotions to it. And, with the thought of like, how do we bring all of that healing to this one event and, or carry it throughout the year. But I'm looking forward to just, seeing people that I haven't seen for a while, like you said, hearing the drum and what that, culture is healing. I don't think anyone ever says, oh, this culture makes me feel icky, right? Like it's a way that we come together and feel good about ourselves, and that, man, our ancestors worked really hard for us to have that today. And I think what we give to our children and their children is just beautiful and is an honor. So I look forward to, all of that. Plus, like you were talking about all these gifts, like we have a silent auction, and man, I think Natives love their silent auction. So we'll have an in-person one where we have hopefully some really good items that we'll collect over the next few months to be in the silent auction. Again, always wanting to find ways to include people on that national scale. So we'll hopefully stream it live on Facebook and have maybe 4 to 5 items that our folks who can attend in person can bid on as well. Just a day to come together, even, honor our volunteers that come through the doors, and, any special guests. I think, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of relatives during the pandemic, and even, till now, to cancer and other diseases. So how do we make a beautiful event despite knowing that, we're honoring our loved ones who can't be with us today? And so you'll see AICAF and a lot of our staff and others who, are committed to this work, posting on their social medias to fundraise for Powwow for Hope, or just, looking forward for 2 people to be there, looking for drum groups to come and, spend the afternoon with us. So CoCo, does it feel like I'm missing anything?
I think you summed it up beautifully, and really it is a celebration of life. We're dancing for life, love, and hope, and that's the mission. And I think the most powerful thing that really happens within that community is the healing. It gives me goosebumps just thinking about when all of the jingle dress dancers are coming in and dancing for healing, because that's really what this event is about. And to see all these people come across to be able to dance just for that reason, for all of our relatives, thinking about all of our relatives in that way. So I just can't wait for it to happen. I'm not supposed to say the word can't, right? Like we're so excited for it to happen and in September. And we hope that you all can join us or just, come in and hang out, virtually. We're still figuring that out, but there'll be ways to interact because we are all connected in this work.
So I think that's one of the core principles too of the Gathering of Native Americans. How do you move from that trauma or intergenerational trauma, because it's intergenerational. It just doesn't, it's a legacy that is a result of being colonized. So once that's the mastery section in Gona, is to give that language, to name what happened, to tell the story and use our healing. We have these healing things. We have the drum, we have song, everybody can sing. And you have those things to transport you, that you have the right to live, to be alive, to have happiness, to have celebration, to have joy. And many of the celebrations are, like the honor dances. Like if they have an honor dance, or if you have a memorial, it's not that you're going to stay there. Those are markers, ceremonial markers in time that you're walking through to the next journey. And yes, in grief, there is sorrow. There is those heavy things because we love the people we lose. The love doesn't stop, but you have to move on. My dad, he passed away from lung cancer in 2002. And he was coaching me before, right? He was fathering me. He was parenting me before because his death was close. He knew it better than I did. And he'd tell me things like, this is how my dad talked. He said, after I die, he usually uses his finger, I don't want you hanging around the boneyard. He meant the graveyard. And he said, don't let this become the center of your life. And sometimes when you're in heavy grief, you think, no, I can't, yes, you can, because you're breathing air. And they're good. They're good. And I think in wellness, we recognize everything. When you rest, when you restore through rest, you receive dreams. And I had a dream about my dad after he passed, where he was at the peak of his health and he was visiting my other cousins. And that was the dream. It was, let's say it was 4.5 months after he passed away, I had that dream. And I woke up and my overwhelming feeling was, he's okay. like he's doing good. He looked good. Like he looked real good, you know. In the dream, he had come from outside, and, you know, my dad was very, up until the end, was very healthy. He still went running, you know, in his 50s and his 60s, and he was a very, very healthy, strong, physical person. But the things that were contributed to his health, to that cancer, were things that started back when he was in the boarding school. And so to see that through my spirit, through the spiritual beliefs, through those episodes of where you're given help, those are recognized. They're waiting for us to listen, to rest. That there is, we sleep because that's how we're made. And a lot of people, you know, maybe your act of wellness, maybe it's your bedtime routine through the pandemic, because we also had to be on edge, right? Boogeyman could be hiding in grocery store aisle number 3A, you know, shelf 2, you know. But as you're relaxing now, it's okay to relax and rest. And I think in Gona, when we talk through the interdependency section, or, you know, you go through that process, it's about restoring and being healthy, being well, taking care of yourself, being your own best parent. Maybe you're, you know, your parent. I heard this word, and I just like love when people fiddle with the English language and it works out for us in a good way. OPA, non-binary, neutral. Nobody has to say, you know, it's above the waist comment, you know, it's like not all those crazy things we've taught to think about gender through the colonization of our cultures. And it means other parent. Well, on your wellness journey, you could be that other parent to yourself. Maybe those 2 original ones taught you things you don't want to carry. And if they had time, maybe they would have been there in your wellness journey with you. Or maybe they're there, but they're not with you today, is to be that other parent. But in the interdependence, healthy interdependence, we go through what that means. Where are those tools? You know, in the term, like, is used a lot, empowerment. You're already powerful. You're already empowered because the Creator gave you life. There's only one you. Maybe twins, but even twins can have some differences because they have 2 spirits. And the English language really is one of those things that we move away from. We use it when we need to. You know, it's like your car. You're not in your car 24/7, unless you're one of our relatives that is their home too. But those temporary environments are not your future. You are already empowered. And really in Gona, we talk about that, how you fluff each other up. I can remember some of the early Gona practitioners, they would use theater, role playing as a part of Gona. I know some of you are actors because I've seen it. I've been your audience, you know, and using that storytelling, the power of story to move us through. That's the time we're in. We're writing already those 7 generations. We're writing the story. And I don't know if there'll be an internet because things are changing. Don't get scared now. You know, we lived before the internet, and we shall live again. But right now, this is a tool where we can move around. And I was with some people today that's the first time I've seen them in person. I mean, this weekend, in flesh and blood. But I've seen them on the internet because they helped me through this medium. So we do what's necessary for wellness, but to move together in an interdependent way where you be you, I be me, and we're all good. I think that value that's a native value. You know, you belong to a people, to a culture. And if your journey has been, maybe you're been removed from that culture, we helped each other. You can see that through the relationships and through their stories I've heard where other tribes They came as themselves, and they were our witnesses to our ceremonies. And so I was at a place this weekend for my people, and there were our witnesses from the West. And that's not the first time. Maybe if we went back and we had a long time to talk about their ancestors, maybe their ancestors were charged with or had the responsibility to come and be the witnesses here in times long ago. So in Gona, we revisit the teachings of the ancestors and the wisdom. And that's Native Wellness's mission, keeping the teachings of the ancestors alive. But that's everybody's story too. My grandma, you find something, or somebody goes out and they have a dream, or they're walking on the land and they're gifted with something. And I really think that the Gathering of Native Americans lives on for older than some of you listening to the Power Hour. You know, it lives on because it gives community a safe place to plan, to be the people they want to be their best today, but to be the people in the future. We are gifting you our wellness. So you have an opportunity in this living time. That's what it means to be a good ancestor. Be your own ancestor. You know, be the one that they're all in you, your DNA. They're all here. They're on the Power Hour. They're just not appearing in a box, you know, a Zoom box or an Amazon box. And somebody got to write a song, honor song about the Amazon box, you know. Yeah. The flower from my bannock arrived on the Amazon box. He traveled those roads way down on the res. He was not in a black hole. It was the Amazon box that brought us together. Somebody make a song. Okay, so you see in the Gathering of Native Americans, but the other part, right, is that generosity. We move towards that. And one of the Anishinaabe women that I knew earlier in my life, she told me, the way you resolve, if you have something tough or hard to say to somebody, you gift them. And then you talk about it. And there is protocol in including my people, the Gakstaman, was our way that we did not, conflict is natural and human, but even there, gifting was involved, the act of generosity, that nobody had to leave in worse shape or looking somehow after they had a disagreement, or maybe they weren't agreeing. They reached a consensus at the end, a shared agreement of how they move forward, how you live life. But in the generosity section is where people are given the moment, that space to say, me as an Indigenous person, this is what I think we need in our community because I belong to this community. And really that's the nature of Gona. And so the Gona will be about giving people that context, how you move through that space, through the Creative Connection projects. But I got 2 messages about other Gonas, and it's a flexible, that's how we were. You know, you move through the circle in life, you become, you know, from a baby or before a baby, your parents, you know, before, you know, egg and sperm, that's another Power Hour. But you move through the circle of life, and in there, you're gifted. I mean, I was making a joke, you know, like we had cold weather, 39 degrees. That's kind of toasty, 36. You know, it snowed in the upper elevations this past weekend, but I was good because I had all these Indian blankets that had been gifted to me. I was feeling good. I had so many blankets, if I put them all on, I wouldn't be able to move. So Ngona is generosity. And much like today, why we're here, it's at the generosity of the Native Wellness Institute. But I also want to give our other folks, because those of you that know me, I'm used to like the, okay, so, but CoCo or Melissa or both of you, I would like to, we're moving towards the end of the hour. Is there something that has come up that, you know, you both have a wealth of experience, you move in all sorts of circles. There might be something that you're doing right now or that you want to share, you know, and so Melissa or CoCo?
We're making eye contact. I just thank you, Lori. Like Melissa said, we can listen to you, you know, all day. You just bring so much wisdom, and super grateful to be here in this space. And, you know, today, as we've been talking about reflecting on the summer solstice, I think a gift not only to us, but to yourselves is if you can go outside after this and, you know, take your shoes off, take your socks off and go and walk, you know, and just embrace and take a breath. Where we are today, you are all here. We are all thriving. You know, we are the ancestors that we want to be. And so thinking about all of this work and healing and the medicines, you know, just take that moment to give yourself that good medicine and breathe in that beautiful sunshine. And so I'll just say that, and I'll pass it over to Melissa. And while Melissa's talking, I have been adding all the names who's commented in my fancy wheel of names, so we can do some door prizes here at the end.
I love the wheel, CoCo. Lori, you said something earlier, and my son, the way he says casino, he goes, "Let's go to the casino." I'm like, well, one, you're not old enough, but so we always tease about the way he says it. I think this, not only this hour, but hearing the work you do, and I know what what you both do and what Native Wellness does, and so many of our programming across Indian country, right, is just really that strengthening that connection. And that's what we're doing right now to create opportunities, right, for us to be healthier as Indigenous people. And it's so beautiful. And I feel like I keep saying that today, like, it's beautiful, right? It's beautiful to be Native, like, man, to think about the connection we have to tobacco and to each other. And just even like you said, we know so many people, like, I went to Phoenix last week and everyone's like, I know CoCo, I know Lori, or I know this person. And I'm like, oh, we're just all connected, right? Even though we think we're going into a new space, like, we're not, right? We're always taken care of. So again, I just want to thank Native Wellness Institute and you, Lori, for being able to hold this conversation with us.
So CoCo, are you ready for the wheel of names?
Yes. So I just be assured I have all of your names that have entered into the chat. You guys are going to hear the wheel in the background, but I'm shuffling it. I don't know if I could share my screen. Do you guys want me to try to share my screen? Nope, I can't share my screen. So you guys just trust. I'm shuffling and we're going to start drawing the names. So the first one who's going to win something is... Oh, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm not sure how to say your name. Anna Wawit, UDAP, you have won something. So if you could send me your address, that would be wonderful. Next person who's up for a nice swag prize is Wendy Seibold. Wendy, all right. Please send me your address. All right, we have two more. Put all your good vibes, get your fingers. The next one is Bernadine Charlie. All right, and last but not least, and stay tuned, come join us whenever we're having different events. We always have lots of fun swag items to share. And the last person who is winning a gift is Dahlia Kearns. Thank you all so much. And just really reflecting again, when Melissa talked about the children, all of our relatives, there's just all those visions and dreams and encouraging you all not only to keep our medicine sacred, but share your dreams, share your visions and your hopes, because we want to live in just this optimistic way. We want to continue that. So I just wanted to share that. And as a mom of 4 kids who keep me very active, and they've been little advocates since in the womb, I'm just really excited and hopeful for our future in this work. So with that, thank you so much. And we're going to turn it back over to Lori.
I hope I see those hats, that bucket hat and all those things. And, of course there's a blanket. Like, I just think There's a reason for that. Everybody has their teachings about, you know, and at the powwows, maybe even powwow of hope, there might be a blanket dance, and we all know what that means. Help a relative out, help a cousin out, you know. But I just want to express gratitude to the Native Wellness Institute, you know, and to the American Indian Cancer Foundation, and just to all of you out there that have, through giving us your time, right? This hour won't be repeated, even though it will be archived. To give yourself, to listen, to be open to that, and to share this time with us is a gift too. So the way I look at everybody, or I envision you out there, you are a gift. You're the Creator's gift. And I really believe that, or I feel every day, things, I guess you live long enough, I've seen miracles. I've seen the clean and sober powwows come back to Indian country. I've seen where people put boundaries in, you know, no, you can't be firing your gun around town, you know. I mean, that boundary is still ongoing. But, you know, how do you behave and be a good relative? Well, I think us all coming together, we're all committing to the future, because we're continuing that wellness dialogue. And there are people worldwide from many, many, many cultures that they're in that moment with us, living that awareness. We're going to get to the future. And we are going, for us as Indigenous people, it is responding and healing from those things that aren't working from us. And we know all of those. But I think the commitment to sharing our knowledge and our tools. How do you get well? What does that mean? What is active wellness? I think that is, anytime we're together, we're already doing it. To come together in a good way, to have safe spaces where everybody belongs, you know, includes everybody. They're like, because you don't have a wall in a circle, nobody's forced to be a wallflower. You know, you all belong to that circle. All the flowers belong in the circle. And there's a role, there's a talent, there's a gift, there's a contribution that you can make. And I'm looking forward to being your witness. I'm looking forward to sitting in your workshop, maybe your power hour, or just to see you in a good way living your dream. So that's really my wish for everybody on this solstice. As Natusi makes his journey home, and it starts another process for us, for my people, but for really everybody. May all your dreams come true. And, you know, I think it goes without saying that this power hour is dedicated to the future, but also that you are welcome here if you need that loving support, that help, that well support to move forward. There are no bad Indians. And that's what I gotta say. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you for our other pair of ears. Anyway, we say ears. Shannon for being our tech wizard on the side. She's behind that little symbol there. So again, thank you to Native Wellness and the American Indian Cancer Foundation for this beautiful hour. Be back next Wednesday now. Have a good day. Bye.